medium-sided tires, actually is much more effective to just generate massive brake temperatures to do heat to the tires. This is more making sure those tires are scrubbed and ready to go heading into that very fast first turn. And here is a look at the Mercedes drivers that are going to be playing a part in earning manufacturer points. They're the four that Cal alluded to from the North American Championship from GT World Challenge Europe. These drivers as well. And, of course, once again from Asia, four coming from there, including Christina Nielsen, former driver in this championship. And all 12 of them are doing it, as you said, Cal. Mercedes really has been doing the job here as you take a look at those points.
He has a healthy lead right now, but you know that the Ferrari camp will come back at them before the end of the championship season.
Yeah, it's going to be fierce all the way to the end of a truly global world championship, world challenge type of year, as the field now getting ready as they work through Moss, anticipating a green flag when they come up to the end of this lap. Lights out on the Acura.
Look at the race format there, 90 minutes, 2 drivers per team.
And the field starting to pair up. Lights out on the Acura pace car. There's the race format, Cal.
90-minute race, 2 drivers per team, 1 pit stop. That happens halfway through. There's a 10-minute window to get that done, and your time spent on pit lane cannot be underneath that 62-second mark, and that could be critical in terms of track position today.
That's a driver change, 4 tires, and refueling. It is snug, and it can play a huge role in this championship. Pace car starting to ease away as the field works its way up into turn number 8. Once again, 90 minutes of racing about to unfold, and that's going to be just what Alvaro Parent, who was so fast in the qualifying session for this 6th round, could pull off.
Well, he's going to want to try and grab that lead.
Jumps into the lead, and Dennis Olsen fighting to hold on to that 3rd spot that he earned from Maxime Soulet in the 2nd of the Bentleys, and the number 58, that is Scott Hargrove, trying to make some moves up through the field as early as he can. He has such good track knowledge here, Cal.
Great couple of corners there for Alvaro Parent from the pole position. Gaps Tony Vilander a little bit. Big battle in the middle of the pack there. Ryan Dial, Kyle Marcelli going hard at it.
Fabulous start for Ryan Dial, right in the mix here as we hop on board with Vilander down through turn number 4, heading into Moss.
Big compression there. Tire pressures aren't up yet, so the right is a little bit lower. Brent there really wide through Moss, just hanging on to that Bentley. Vilander closes in.
And Dennis Olsen in that white right Motorsports Porsche, right behind the red Ferrari. But yeah, Parent got a great, even though he had the little bobble going into Moss, he got a great launch out of it, Cal.
He really did. So impressive in qualifying. Laid down that mega lap on about his 3rd lap of qualifying, and everyone just chased him but couldn't get even close.
And into 8, Kyle Marcelli absolutely almost alongside Ryan Dial. He is looking for a way through, as is Hargrove. Late move there, realized that wasn't on, and that might give.
Holzer a bit of a run between the 2 Porsches down this front straightaway. Scott Hargrove, so much experience here at this racetrack, even though he lives over 4,000 K away. He calls it his local track. Vilander finding the groove in this Ferrari. Brent is not getting away in the lead.
Not at all. Look back here from Alvaro Parent. Some great onboards for you to enjoy here through turn 3. This just keeps coming at you at great speed. This fall away down the hill into turn 4 really is breathtaking.
Flat out through here with the tires are in their sweet spot, and then hard on the brakes. Big compression there. Alvaro up and over the curb again. He's running wide through Moss. Needs to tidy that up.
And you think maybe what he's trying to do is get a big run through that second part, the tighter part of that corner, but when you're up over that curb, that just unsettles the car. But with that Bentley, when it gets up on the pipe, it moves.
It does. I think he may just not have the front tire temperatures and pressures where they need to be right now. He can't get the mechanical grip at this lower speed corner on this racetrack. Hopefully that will come in for him.
And I think I saw that Holzer may have snuck through on Marcelli. Nope, he did not. He is fighting hard to do exactly that, however. But I think it was Hargrove. That was Hargrove that slotted through on Holzer. That was the change. So Hargrove doing everything he can to move up just a bit.
Yeah, it wasn't the qualifying performance he was looking for, and they try to rebound from some disappointment yesterday. See Trent Hinman there settling in at the back of the pack. Nice job by him to be be jumping into a fresh car this weekend, even though he has competed in the Pirelli GT4 Championship earlier in the weekend.
And the big point there is there wasn't a morning warm-up or anything for him to get a few laps in. So he literally is doing this cold.
They were willing to give him a hardship lap this morning, but by the time they got him on the phone and got him to the racetrack, it was too late to do it. Brent there, much tidier, slowed down the entry a little bit, gives him that good clean shot. Vilander there, looks like he's struggling with a little bit of understeer coming off of Moss.
And then Dennis Olsen finds himself in third in this lead group of three, starting to make a little break from Soule in fourth, and the Al Marcelli, Hargrove, Holzer, Brown, and Mark Miller in that number 5 Gradient Racing Acura completing the top 10. And by the time they get to turn 8, Brent consistently opens up about a 3 to 4 car length margin, but it evaporates pretty quickly as soon as they get to the exit of 8.
Yeah, the R Ferry Motorsport team, home turf, got the victory here yesterday. Vilander once more. He's been a busy boy. I think he's on about 6 straight weekends, and it doesn't slow down until after Le Mans in mid-June. He also commentates. He runs in 2 different sports car championships, commentates for Formula One for Finnish TV, heads to Monaco next weekend.
He is a busy lad, and been watching that car and those drivers all weekend in that Ferrari. And through turn 8, they seem to run a much tighter line and still carry immense speed. And that just gives you an indication that that car is hooked up and the drivers are extracting everything out of it. But they sit second right now to the Bentley of Parent. Today's coverage is brought to you in partnership with CrowdStrike and with Mercedes-AMG. Brent leads them back again on this long run up the Andretti straightaway, and that green Bentley with the yellow highlights. Vilander in the red Ferrari and the white and black Wright Motorsports Porsche sits in third. There is Maxime Soule in the second of the Bentleys with the blue highlights. And then rounding out the top 5 is Dial in that multicolored but primarily sort of teal Mercedes in the second spot in the Pro-Am category, but 5th overall.
Dial has been really pleased with the handling on this Mercedes-AMG machine as he then plunges down through turn 1. Looking out of the back of the Bentley, Vilander keeping the pressure on. Let's see how he keeps that balance. It's a long stint here, between 40 to 50 minutes before they can hit pit lane for that mandatory pit stop.
It just seems to me, Cal, I've been watching it all weekend, went out on Thursday and watched one of the practice sessions, and that Ferrari gets its speed and uses a lot less track doing it. It just really seems to be stuck.
It really does, but Soule just laid down the fastest lap of the race, so I wonder if they started with a little lower tire pressure on the second of the Bentleys here, and Maxime Soule is now finding the sweet spot for the grip.
Well, the other part of that equation, as you mentioned it, it's much warmer today than it has been at any point during the weekend. So the engineers had to do a little bit of extrapolating to figure out what to do with pressure.
Well, there's some parameters that they have to stay within in terms of not lowering the tire pressure too much. But certainly, once you're outside of that, you want to start as low as you can, anticipating with the warmer conditions that you may get more tire pressure build through the course of the run.
You know that Capex program is a mighty impressive one at that. And speaking of impressive, a driver who really seems to have found his form here this weekend at a track he loves is George Kurtz, and he's with Ryan.
Yes, he's already a champion in the series in GT4, now running in the GT3 category. How has that transition gone, and how comfortable do you feel around this place?
Yeah, it's been great. We had some good luck over the years here. I really like the track, and the Mercedes has been fantastic. It's a good car to drive. I feel comfortable. We had really good pace this weekend, and we're just hoping for the best in this race with Colin in right now.
Yeah, for you and the CrowdStrike team, what a great asset to be able to have in the car. Colin Brown, so talented in just about anything he jumps into, and I know he's been working with you for quite a while.
Yeah, he's been working with me for probably 6-7 years right now. We've got a chance to drive together, which is special, and he's just a super talented guy, and he's won here many times in the past, and hopefully we'll do it again.
Thank you, George. Good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, he has truly been really quick here this weekend, and a lot of that, I'm sure, comes from Mr. Brown and his immense speed and knowledge of this facility here at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. Alvaro Parent continues to lead here in the green Bentley. Vilander in second, Olsen in the Pro-Am Porsche in third. But the story here right now might be Maxime Soulet in that number 3 Bentley. You mentioned he has turned fast lap of the race, and he had a bit of a deficit to the rear deck of Olsen's Porsche. Not so much anymore.
No, I think the tires are coming in for him, and he's gradually running laps about 2 to 3 tenths quicker than the leaders as he closes in on this lead back. Talk about impressive, though. Trent Hinman, I've just been watching his lap times. He's now running lap times within a tenth or two of Kyle Marcelli. So he's still towards the back end of the pack, but his lap times and his pace is extremely good as we take a look at the start.
Once again, Parent doing what he wanted to do. Vilander as well, slotting in. Soulet trying the outside of Olsen down into turn 1. Had to give it up. And rest of the field side by side through turn 1 for much of them here and entering turn 2.
Yeah, Marcelli there in that white Acura was putting the pressure on DL, but couldn't quite make it stick.
There is Soulet. You can see the amount of ground he has made up in joining this now and making it a 4-car battle. Behind him, Dial has equally, in that 63 Usalco Mercedes, been able to open up a little bit of ground over the MBRP Performance Exhaust Acura of Marcelli.
One thing that we noticed yesterday, Greg, is that the cars, because of the high downforce nature of this GT3 machinery and the nature of this circuit, it makes it really tough to get any closer than what we're seeing Vilander right now. You come through these high-speed sweepers, you need the air hitting that front splitter and those dive planes to create the downforce, so you kind of get stymied. You kind of get in that no zone where you can't get any closer. So track position is so key, and that's why the pit stop today will be really critical in who claims victory as well.
I mean, really the only way you can do the pass, if you feel the car's ready for it, you've got to attack and do it now. If it's 4 or 5 corners, it just starts to root the tires up. You've got to back off again. And that's why at the end of the stints, when the tires have been used up just a little bit, that's sometimes when you can see somebody that can make an aggressive move.
Well, particularly if they got aggressive with their starting tire pressure, and they're going to pay the price towards the end of the stint. And that's what many of the drivers who are following are certainly hoping for. Mario Andretti straight away. It's not really straight, but boy, oh boy, about 150, 160 miles an hour as you crest that hill. Brush the brakes and then plant it, as Tony Vilander said, through turn 8. Beautiful change of direction. Great rhythm through this section. It's just the timing is lovely just to get over, back over to the left and set up for this final corner.
And there are times in what would seem a too tight turn 10 to be able to make a pass. You can do it.
You can. It's become, people started to do it, and everyone said, you know what? That's a great chance to claim victory right at the end. So if you're close enough, you really have to watch yourself in terms of leaving that door open in turn 10.
Just keeping an eye on what's unfolding a little deeper in the pack. The battle right now for third, and well, it wouldn't be for third in Pro-Am because one of the teams involved is an all-pro car, but for the battle for 6th overall, Hargrove has now closed to within half a second on the back of Marcelli. And those two Canadians, as we talked about with immense track knowledge here, while that's not a class battle per se for Hargrove, it is a big points battle here because pros are scored on the overall. Look in the back, there comes Marcelli, there is Hargrove in that white Porsche. Then a bit of a gap now back to the Allegra Porsche with Marco Holzer going by right there. Then the orange CrowdStrike Mercedes of Colin Brown, the 04. As we look at the number 43 Acura, you talked about the great, sensible, smart drive Trent Hinman is putting in. His co-driver is one of the best in the business, Dane Cameron with Ryan.
Yeah, Dane, I'm sure you thought you would be starting a little bit further up, but with the driver change, you have to start at the back. But given the circumstances, sticking Trent in the car, that's a pretty good fallback plan if you have to have one.
Yeah, no, we're happy to have Trent in the car and fortunate to have him here. Obviously, he's got a lot of experience in the NSX, so it's kind of a bit of a plug and play there since he knows the car, knows all the switches and everything, so eliminates some error there. And but yeah, no, really unfortunate that we couldn't have Brett today. He's been fighting a bit of a back injury this weekend, and he wasn't happy with his personal performance yesterday, so he decided he wanted to step out for today. So I hate that for him. He's probably watching at home. So hey, Brett, we miss you. Wish you were here with us. We've been running really good. He's been doing a great job in the car for us. Brett, obviously, we won at Virginia, so we were both quite confident. We both had a lot of success here before at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, so we were looking for another good weekend, hopefully get another win for us in Pro-Am, but unfortunately that won't be the case.
Yeah, now a pro entry for you guys. What are your goals, given the circumstances, everything changing last minute?
Yeah, I mean, just do the best that we can, really. Trent obviously has not a single lap in the car, so he's getting comfortable, doing a good job. Pace seems fine. unfortunate thing is it's quite hard to pass here. So we'll just kind of do what we can, try to chip off a few passes here and there if we can. Hopefully have a good pit cycle, make up a few more, and see what we can make out of it.
Sounds good. Thank you, Dave.
Thanks.
I suspect we'll see him moving to the front once he gets in the race car, guys. He's a real shoe.
Yeah, that he is. And Hinman right now is starting to mount a pretty serious attack on Michael De Quesada. Just what we were talking about, Cal.
It's a
Down
brush,
to the
maybe.
inside at 10.
Not sure if he touched him or not, but Michael certainly saw him there, and he is through. De Quesada off the road a little bit. The BMW tries to take advantage here, as Shirazaka as well.
Not quite able to slide through, but Hinman apparently feeling okay. I'm ready to give it a bit of a go here, and went after De Quesada and moves up one spot here, and that puts him now technically one spot away from a top 10. And boy, look at this, Shirazaka. I wonder if that touch didn't do something to De Quesada's car, or if he's just fighting to get back, and if he dropped his tires, he may have dirtied him up, but he's now struggling. De Quesada in the number 22 Allegra Insync Healthcare Systems Porsche, after having given that spot up to Shirazaka, is now trying to come back. I wonder, like I said, Cal, when that contact happened, if he dropped his lefts on the track, if it really dirtied it up. Here's another look at it.
Take a look and listen. Sure, there was a touch. I think Michael suddenly saw him, opened up his hands a little bit, so there wasn't contact. Then he ran out of road, dropped that left side in the dirt. That means you're not going to have the grip through turn one, and that may have spooked him a little bit, and Shirazaka took advantage.
So Hinman showing why they were pretty confident of putting him in. As we said, in the another championship that he runs in, has had a stellar season, driving the Acura as well. I don't think he's ever been outside the top 5 so far this season. Leads in the points, so I like how Dane put it. Knew where all the switches were, didn't have to worry about any of that.
That's for sure, and Trent Hinman, so impressive. One of these young drivers who are rapidly moving up the ranks. Got the attention of the Acura brand, so it's a great fit for him and Dane to be paired up here today. Unfortunate that Brett couldn't make it. He just tweaked his back in the compression for braking into turn 5 on Thursday in the brief practice session that they had at the end of the day, and was struggling. They tried to accommodate him with some air pillows in the seat, but in the race yesterday he just really struggled, and decided he couldn't make it for today's race.
Well, the loads around this track are just huge, so if you're hurt, it's tough to even be able to get through that.
You don't really realize the torque in your body until you have an injury that you're putting it through, and this racetrack will certainly highlight that for you.
On board now with the number 63, Ryan Dial for DXDT Racing in Iselco, supporting that program and having a very good run today. Currently sitting,
seems so much calmer than the onboard lap we saw with Pat Long to open our show, and even the onboard lap with Trent Hinman. Dial said he's very comfortable with his race car, feels they hit the sweet spot with the setup. It is dialed in.
It's one of the things we've always noted about the Mercedes AMG GT3 platform. It just seems to keep that platform stability, but so compliant, just absorbs curbs, bumps, anything. They really put together a great car when they built this one. That's why they're hanging in there so long. There's so many other Evos that have come out in the various other cars, but that Mercedes, they're just sort of leaving it alone because it has been a very strong program. So Dial having a solid run here in the top 5, currently running second in the Pro-Am category, but Kyle Marcelli in the MBRP Performance Exhaust Acura sits right behind him in third. Battle for second in the Pro-Am category has sort of tailed off a little bit. Ryan Dial in the 63 Mercedes has been able to find a little pace relative to Kyle Marcelli in the Racer's Edge Acura NSX that sits behind him. They're 5th and 6th overall, battling for second and third in Pro-Am. Up front, Alvaro Parent has been able to keep that margin at a second or more over Vilander thus far.
Oh, he's done it by running the fastest lap of the race at 1:17.1. Vilander only a 10th off of that mark. So it looked like the other Bentley was going to be the hot rod for a few laps there, but certainly Parent has got a fast car underneath him as well. These two guys, first and second in the championship, Greg, led by Vilander and Molina right now.
And they're both well aware of that, and Parent understands finishing front. That's going to be a big part reclaiming that lead. And Pirelli loves this place. Look, you remember last year they came here and it was just an absolute washout for the first day. And the Bentley, admittedly, that car was not great in the rain. So during the race, when it started to dry up, they made the decision to pit. This wasn't a sprint X race. Pit, put on slick tires. He put in a flyer, and that lap determined the grid for the second day. And he and Baptista had done the same thing. They just checked out. And Pirelli truly loves this place.
He really does, and you'd think that the Bentley would be ideally suited with that long wheelbase to these fast sweeping corners, but it seems like everyone is well suited here. The Ferrari seems to be a good fit, and the performance by Olsen, the Norwegian driver sitting there in the third spot in that Pro-Am entry, the number 91 car for Wright Motorsports, has been sensational here today.
And think about it, the three different manufacturers running in the top three right now, each of them a vastly different driveline layout, and yet running this close. That's pretty impressive.
It really is, and you got DL there in the Mercedes AMG.
Exactly.
Been super strong as well.
Riding on board here, Soule. You can see the immensely impressive Dennis Olsen in that number 91. Wright Motorsport Ferrari had a little moment there, Cal.
Yeah, lots of steering inputs there as he's trying to get that power down in that V8 engine. Sounds are just immense here.
Wonderful, isn't it?
Olsen there, maybe he's trying to just scrub the tires or feel something out there. So a little weave up the straightaway. Dennis Olsen has felt something going on with the race car.
Well, he was who I was talking about with a little bobble exiting Moss that I saw up front when we were on board with Soule, and I wonder if he didn't feel like he picked up something on the tires.
Just checking it out. This will be the test, though, turn one. That'll give you the feel you're looking for. Such high commitment, high down force, big loads through these tires here, plunge over the hill.
And as they feed their way out of turn number 3, riding on board with Maxime Soule, we were wondering about, did they start with a different pressure setup or whatever? Well, their strategist is one of the best in the business, and he's with Ryan.
Yeah, Thomas Blum probably knows the answer to that. The guys in the booth were wondering, did you start the cars on different tire pressures based on where they were starting?
No, from what I understand, they both set them fairly even, so there was no difference between the two. So we didn't really feel like we needed to try to do anything to get the speed in quickly or not. So
we know how fast that Ferrari is from yesterday. You've got the one Bentley up ahead of it right now. How about the second one? What can you do from a strategy perspective to jump a couple of spots in the order?
Well, as we talked yesterday, unfortunately it didn't work for the 3 car in that they had an issue with the auto start and lost some time there. And if it worked properly, we would have jumped the Ferrari. So again, we're hoping that, like we have been, we're going to be really efficient with the pit lane delta. That's the most important thing. Alvaro's starting to eke away a little bit from the Ferrari. Obviously, if we could get a little bit of a gap, that would be ideal for the 9 car. For the 3, they're just going to have to try to stay close. The Porsche that's ahead of them is an AM car. The AM driver is very good, but obviously we should be able to get by him, hopefully in the pist, if not on track. So we should be in good shape. We'll see.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, Pirelli doing everything he can do here, and that mistake, and that was more of a technical issue that they had with the, as you said, the auto start. But the 2 teams that have consistently executed beautifully in the pits so far this season is K-Pax and Wright, with our Ferry not too far behind. But that window that they give them is really snug, and one bobble can cost you dearly. And that's going to play out in about 20 minutes here at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. Tony Vilander continuing to give chase. Behind him, Dennis Olsen has been giving it a great ride. But Cal, just watching that car coming through the 8-9 complex, it looks a little edgy right now.
It does. It certainly doesn't seem to be maintaining the balance like the Bentley and the Ferrari up front, and that may allow Soule to put the pressure on. As Thomas Blam alluded to in the interview with Ryan, he feels that they should leapfrog that Porsche eventually by the checkered flag, and they're obviously looking at the big picture and getting 2 of those Bentleys back onto the podium here today, but everyone is very much in the game. So we look at Hargrove here trying to battle his way back into contention from a relatively poor qualifying position for that group, particularly for him on what he calls his home track.
hustling that Wright Motorsports Porsche as best he can right now. Sits in the 7th spot in the overall order here. And he closed up a little bit on Marcelli and looked like he was going to make a race of it. Now he's faded back by about 3 seconds. Then this battle is as close as it gets. The 24 of Holzer and the Porsche right behind him, the 04 Brown. And look at the run. Hinman now has flat run down Mark Miller in the number 5.
He has. He's a little bit quicker than this gaggle in front of him. So if he can go and attack these guys, it will certainly give Dane Cameron a great shot when he jumps aboard this at the halfway point. It's a brilliant performance by Mark Miller until Bechtolsheimer yesterday to claim the Pro-Am victory. A lot of pressure from the end. There you can see Mark Miller putting the pressure on. Colin Brand there up the straightaway. It looks like the Acura may have a few K advantage over the Mercedes, pulling up the Andretti straightaway.
Yeah, Colin went defensive, didn't he? And he did it before Miller made the move, so it was a perfectly acceptable move. But he said, I'm going to scoot over to the inside here because he's clearly got to run.
You're allowed to do that. You can't react to someone making a move, but you can be proactive in choosing your lines. So if you feel that you're going to be pass down that straightaway, you certainly take the inside line for the upcoming corner, turn 8, which would obviously be the right-hand side of the road. On board here with Trent Hinman once again. And so calm behind the wheel. They've been trying to get the balance of that car a little bit better. Finding a lot of high-speed understeer when you're on the brakes. It gets a little bit twitchy in the rear end. But there's not been a lot of track time here this weekend to work with, and you've got to be pretty subtle with those adjustments, otherwise you can get it completely wrong.
Oh, that huge compression into Moss. Square up the exit, the tighter part of the double apex, and onto the Andretti straightaway. And what a great scrap this is. Hinman closes it up, and then right here you can see the attack once again, but this time it's Brown that got out of that turn a little bit stronger, and it's sort of negated the run that Mark Miller had the last time here as this battle is continuing. Fabulous battle unfolding for the 8th overall position here. And it is led right now by the number 24 Allegra Porsche of Marco Holzer, the Porsche with the orange splitter color. But great battle behind him. Colin Brown in the 04 CrowdStrike Mercedes, Mark Miller in the Gradient Acura number 5, and the 43 of Trent Hinman. And Hinman didn't take him long to be able to catch this scrum and make it a 4-car battle.
An amazing performance by Trent. We knew he'd have the ability to jump in this car and be quick, but to get into a rhythm early, set very fast lap times, and then chase this pack down. Now he's into that aero effect when you're following through these high-speed corners where you start to lose your downforce a little bit versus the driver that you're chasing. So you may get stymied here a little bit. Maybe the real-time racing camp led by Nathan Bernot can do a little bit of strategy here in terms of when they do the pit stop. Typically, with the relatively cool conditions, the overcuts seem to be the way to go in terms of staying out on the hot tire versus someone pitting, and then that new driver getting in on cold tires should give you the track position. But it's a lot warmer here this morning, so that should equalize a little bit in terms of that effect.
Once again, yeah, Mark Miller getting a great run in that blue, white, and black Acura, the number 5, and closing it up on Colin Brown, who went defensive, and Miller couldn't do anything with it, but here comes Hinman once again, the orange and white real-time Acura. It's about as close as we've seen him, Cal.
It is close, but he's not quite close enough. Remember, he made that amazing move into turn 10 on De Quesada, and I'm sure he'd like to do a cut and paste of that move and try and get inside that other Acura, but he's not going to get too aggressive here, and who knows what he's taken out of the tires as well. The good news is he's not got to think about handing over the car and keeping the tires in good shape for Dane Cameron, because the mandatory is a Ford Pirelli tire change in this race today. So we can use them up. Just try and get as much track position as he can.
Down through 4. Very interested here to see the run that the white and red CrowdStrike car does, and Colin got out of there very well this time, and that's going to negate what seemed to be an advantage for Miller a couple of times in getting a run out through that. There is a look at the Turner Motorsports BMW M6 GT3 in the hands of Takuya Shirazaka. And the good news was, remember, Cal, they had that big issue with the pack in the grass, and when Takeda had that off, and it looked like they could have damaged that engine. Reports are it's good.
Yeah, I checked in with the team this morning. I expect them to say we had to change the motor, and they said no, thumbs up. I thought they'd cooked the goose literally yesterday. That thing was steaming.
Yes. I guess that's an indication that BMW makes a pretty stern power plant, a sturdy power plant for sure. And right now, Shirazaka is turning some pretty impressive times. I mean, he's running laps that are just as fast as a number of the drivers there in that 6th, 7th, 8th range. He's giving it a go.
Really impressive by both drivers to come to this racetrack, learn it, and take the commitment level to the point they have. Great stuff.
But watching up front, Parent, that margin last time by was about a second clear of Vilander, and then another 2 7/10 back to Olsen at this stage as Vilander works his way through, trying to find some speed, trying to close up on Alvaro Parent here as we approach 30 minutes complete. Today's coverage is brought to you in partnership with Optima Battery, with Bentley, and with Porsche. Working through turn 3, Vilander. Well, he does that rim shot on the exit, but that is the fast line. But it's one you've got to be pretty brave to execute, because if you run wide, well, we've seen actually the Ferrari, not necessarily this car, but that Ferrari have a big moment right there.
Yeah, qualifying a couple of years ago, having claimed the fastest time, their driver went off the road here and destroyed the car, affected their whole season. And that's what this racetrack can do to you. It can affect your race, it can affect your year. Tony Vilander very much up on the wheel this weekend. Had a little bobble in that very turn 3 yesterday when he had the lead, but kept it together. He and Molina, what a great combination they are. Working together for the very first time last year, went on to claim the Sprint X title. They've come back equally strong for 2019.
Last time through, Vilander, that margin was about the same, a second, but it looks like he may have been able to close it up just a little bit here. Nope, exactly a second, so virtually identical times on that lap for those 2 leaders.
It's amazing is the parity amongst the top
Yes.
group. You look at the first 7 drivers in this field and look at their fastest laps. They're separated by only 0.3 of a second.
That is just remarkable. That last lap, a 17.66 for Parent to 17.63 for Vilander. They are just that close. Here's a look at Soule, who just has not been able. And I really think it's that aero sensitivity on these cars that he's closed up on Olsen a few times, and then suddenly he has to just drop back a little bit. It makes this a challenge, doesn't it?
It does, and you may have a preconceived plan. If you're going to run long into that pit stop window and you think, well, maybe if the other driver in front of me stops early, give myself some sweet spot left in that tire to go and attack for those in laps. Don't just run off the front tires if you're suffering with understeer, following that car closely. Keep the tires in good shape, so if you suddenly have a 2 or 3 lap opportunity, that you can really attack and lay down some fast laps.
And that's a very, very good point. It's going to be interesting to see, as you alluded to with the strategy, how it is affected and changed a little bit by the fact it's so much warmer right now than it has been, and what the plan is here. But that makes total sense. If you're going to stay out a little bit, you're going to protect those tires.
Yeah, and it's just you suddenly find you're not gaining anything on the competitors by just grinding the fronts and suffering with that understeer. I'm on board here with the Bentley through that very ultra-fast turn 2.
He is being very, very smooth right now. So looking forward to seeing what their plan is when the pit stop window opens in about 8 minutes here at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. Alvaro Parent in the Bentley, leading from Vilander still. The margin continues to be right around a second. Then Olsen leading in Pro-Am with a brilliant run in the 3rd spot. He is the pro-rated driver of the 2 in that car and living up to his reputation as a young professional. So you get a look there at Tony Vilander.
Tony commentates on Formula One, and if he kept the gap where it is right now, he'd be getting DRS effect in a Formula One car, because he has kept that gap right hovering just underneath a second for about the last half a dozen laps.
Watching now some of the field slide through, and looks right now as though Kyle Marcelli, who had dropped well off of Dial, is starting to close that margin up just a little bit. And of course, Martin Barkey is the AM driver of that pairing, but he's a good one, Ryan.
And he's standing by. He'll be coming in a little while. Kyle in the car right now. John Meraki, the team owner for Racer's Edge. We're seeing Kyle close in a little bit on Ryan. Might the pit stop be the opportunity to make that jump and get into second in class?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. What we've found since we've been here, it's very difficult to pass on this track, which is why we don't see a lot of passing action out there amongst everyone, really. So we've already had that discussion here that we know the pit stop's going to be critical for us, and we're hoping we can leapfrog some positions during the pit stop.
And for your team, new, relatively speaking, to the GT3 ranks, you've run big cars before, but it's been a little while. How has this adaptation, I guess, of the pit stops been? I know it's something you put a lot of work into in the off-season.
Yeah, we do a lot of thinking and evaluating, reviewing the videos of the pit stops, and trying to understand all the nuances of how we can do it better. So we feel that we're constantly improving, and it's very important to us to continue to evaluate all the time.
Well, the critical moment is coming soon. The window should be opening in just a handful of minutes now. We'll let you get back to work, John.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I'll tell you, they have been absolutely superb this year. 2 class wins in Pro-Am, and overall pole for Kyle Marcelli in one of the races. They have stepped up into the GT program and haven't missed a beat.
It's been amazing. It's been fun to watch because they're a great little team. They don't have the resources of some of the bigger camps, but they've done an amazing job switching to the class and understanding this NXX chassis, which has been superb this year. And typically in the Pro-Am class, you would expect with that opportunity of 10 minutes when you make that stop, you'd keep your pro in as long as you can. The pros started the second race of the weekends as part of the rules that the amateur driver qualifies and starts race 1. The pro then finishes and starts race 2 with their qualifying time. So you'd expect to want to keep those guys in and maintain that fast pace before you switch over.
Well, the fact you've got pros on nice hot tires, and you're going to have AMs coming out on cold new tires, and so this is a big moment here for the pit stop. He alluded to how crucial it is, and as Vilander may have finally tidied it up just a little bit, closed it down. Let's see. Yeah, it was over a second a couple of laps ago. It's down to 0.8 right now, Cal.
Yeah, it's very close. So what Thomas Bland was hoping for, that Perrin would edge away and give that team a little bit of a buffer. Tony Vilander is not letting that happen. So he realizes they're getting close to that pit stop window. He's going to use his car up as much as he can and close that delta down. So ideally they can come in very close together. Then that's the first 2 blinks. Who's going to blink first? Typically the K-Pax team are very much on top of their game, but let's not forget the 9 car had that big pit fire at VIR that cost them a result there. And they've certainly made some changes in terms of where the refueling hose connects and trying to give that refuel a little bit more space when they do the driver change. But the right-hand drive car is very tight there, and VIR was the first time that they've been doing the refueling from the right-hand side. You got the same issue here as well, here at CTNP.
You know that K-Pax team will adjust, but you know that's the thing in this point battle up front. No car in the front end of this has had an absolutely clear weekend. Everybody has had something that has robbed them of points, but it seems to churn, so you've got this really close points battle up front.
There's a real ebb and flow. It's been a roller coaster, even though we're only relatively early into this championship season, round 6 for all of these front-running teams. However, the R Ferry group, they seem to be the most consistent. Maybe that's what's giving them the lead.
Tony Vilander has, along with Molina, of course, and a great team at R Ferry Motorsports doing a great job. And, of course, for them, this one is so crucial as it is a home race for the locally based R Ferry Motorsports racing team. That beautiful Rosso Corsa red Ferrari. As we enjoy watching this battle for the lead, we've got some great racing that is unfolding back in the pack as well. And you can see the margin this duo up front now has opened up over Olsen. Then it's Soule. Then there's a little bit of a gap from that second green Bentley back to the teal Mercedes here of Ryan Dial as he whistles through. Then Marcelli in that white MBRP performance exhaust machine. And here's this battle that we've been following. And oh, a little bit of a moment there for Miller, Cal.
Yeah, and that was the corner he struggled with yesterday, despite grabbing the win. I spoke to him this morning. He said, yeah, that is one corner where you struggled with yesterday. He had a bit of a soft pedal going to the brakes there in the compression out of turn 4. He said, I just had to slow it down. And we saw that yesterday. He just takes a slightly leisurely approach to the corner, calms the car down. Otherwise, it starts hopping around. He gets really wide up into the middle of that corner.
It sure didn't seem to hurt him this time, though, in terms of getting out of the turn, did it? He gapped the Mercedes of Brown and was right on the back of Holzer, as he is now coming through turn 10.
It's like Hinman's back on the attack again. He dropped back a little bit, but now he's got right on the tail end of Colin Brown. Miller, a great performance getting around Colin Brown. That's no easy task.
No.
Very impressive young driver.
It's interesting, you know, that Hinman would love to get through, pick up at least another spot before that pit window opens, whatever their plans are at this stage.
Yeah, the little lift there right at the exit of turn 2. Typically, you do the breathe and then you're back all the way through, but I think he's just feeling that aero effect, losing the downforce at the very completion of that turn.
And if we're watching and going back to the theory you were talking about real quickly here, if somebody's attacking at this point, would that indicate they're probably planning to come in earlier in the window?
Yeah, I would think so. You just want to close that gap down and give your pit crew the best opportunity.
That is the battle of 4 cars once again going for the 8th overall spot. Pro cars and Pro-Am cars. Boy, Miller getting a great run this time. Not quite close enough as they got up into turn 8, but he is really ramping a great exit out of Moss. Fabulous battle for 8th overall continues to unfold here. Marco Holzer right there in the Allegra InSync Healthcare Systems Porsche over the number 5 blue, white, and black Acura NSX from Gradient Racing. And then the car up in front of this view is the 04 CrowdStrike Mercedes of Colin Brown. And then you ride once again with Trent Hinman in the number 43 Real Time Racing Acura. He's been attacking just a little bit here. We're getting close to that pit window opening in about 10 seconds.
Yep, and it's not always necessarily the leaders who can make the first duck to pit lane. It just depends where the clock is. Previous seasons, we've had to give the leader the first opportunity. So it's not the case now, but who blinks first? Who feels by doing the undercut and getting their fresh driver in on fresh Pirelli P0s may have the advantage? The key is getting those tires up to temperature quickly if you do decide to do that. Here comes Soule. Doesn't have the track position on the leader for K-Pax. Brent stays out. Soule going to turn it over to Baptista, looking for their 3rd victory on the season.
You talked about the strategy before, Cal. They're looking ahead as to where they might come out after these stops, and having been trailing Olsen for so long, I wonder if they've elected to pit here and hopefully come out and have a nice clear track for a while to be able to really get some laps in once those tires get to their temperature.
That's a key factor, and they have some software available to them that gives them like a ghost car, tracking all of the cars around where you would come out, and that is certainly a key factor in making that decision. A little bit of a bobble there, getting that right rear tire on. Good stop. Typically, if they do a clean one, they've got about 5 seconds to play with on that pit stop delta.
Well, a quick reference point as to whether or not it was a good stop. And that
was
one
close.
was about as close as it gets.
62.138. 62 is the bare minimum, so they're right on the number there.
That was remarkable. And as I was going to say, if the car comes down and then sits for a minute, a couple of ticks, that means that was a good stop underway. 43 is in, and now we see the 22. Michael De Casat out.
Real timer in as well. Dane Cameron taking over. They dropped the car, and he's still have to wait and see how they do in the Delta time. And yeah, they lost some there. And that could come down to the driver change. Remember, Trent Hinman was only thrown in the mix here earlier in the day, so his hard work has been thwarted a little bit by a 70-second stop for the 43 machine.
The 22 comes out, and they're about 4 seconds long. That gives you an idea. It is difficult to get it done. but not impossible, as that number 3 Bentley crew proved.
Talking to the Capex group, they said a perfect stop would be about 57, 58 seconds. If you nail everything, it's about 21 seconds to change the tires. That's the lowest they've seen.
Well, that is a snug window, but I like that. It really puts the team into the mix. And this is, after all, a team sport. You know, he talks about the drivers a lot, but those crew guys, they do all the really hard work, and it's an opportunity for them to really make a difference in the race, not just in prep for it.
Vilander ever closer.
Oh, man.
It seems down to 0.6 of a second, made up 3/10 on Perrin. As both the leaders attempting to do the overcut, staying out on those hot Pirelli P0s. Will still have really good grip, still giving them really good lap times here today.
And then, as you were talking about for the Pro-Am pairings, Olsen, Dial, Marcelli have all stayed on board. The pro drivers starting and have stayed on board. And that was completely to be expected at this stage.
Talking about the performance of the tires, Vilander's last lap was within 0.3 of a second of his best of the day. And look at that, he's getting really close. He wants to give his boys and girls in pit lane a chance to leapfrog this Bentley for their second win and sweep the weekend for Remo Ferri.
Well, we've just seen that. If you could do a stop in the 62.5 range, and the other team does one in the 63.5 range, if you're within a second, it gives you that much more of an opportunity to come out of the pits in front at a track that is a great track, but notoriously difficult for high downforce cars to pass on.
That's right. So if you come out, and even if you're on cold tires, you know, maybe you can keep someone at bay because of the difficulty in passing, and it'll take, in these warmer conditions, at least a lap. It was about 2 laps to get the true tire temp in the cooler conditions early in this weekend, but that will change a little bit with the ambient and the track temperature up.
A great view here on board with Perrin, looking back at Vilander as they go into turn 3.
It's a 62-second minimum pit lane delta, but they do have a 1-second joker they can play with, Greg. You can only use it once a weekend, so it's either in race 1 or race 2. Who tries to play with that and cut the margins even closer? Vilander's so close there.
Look at this.
Ferrari is really hooked up. Speaking to Molina this morning at the hotel, he said the car was just quick immediately in Thursday practice and put a big smile on his and Tony Vilander's face.
Yeah, it looked quick in that practice session. Unfortunately, just to give you an update, the team that won the Pro-Am category yesterday, having an absolutely catastrophic pit stop.
Yeah, 1 minute 50. That's not going to help their cause for a follow-up on yesterday's win by a long way. It's a shame.
It is. Look at Vilander in full-on attack mode here. Margin was 0.7 last time by, and it's 0.4. He clearly has saved a little bit in those tires, and now is willing to really go after Perrin here.
Could go 3 more laps if you wanted to. Got to be careful if you cut it too close, in case you have a little bobble on that in lap and miss it. That will cost you a drive-through penalty. Vilander's car, he just runs that slightly more shallow angle. We saw that between the Bentley and the Ferrari yesterday with different drivers even. The Ferrari can just run more of an acute angle to the road, to the corner, to the apex, versus the Bentley that leaves that big, wide radius, it seems.
You could hear there Vilander was already on the throttle as Perrin, looking at the brake lights, was coming off the brake at the exit of 3. That Ferrari is in fine form, no question. Which tells you that, I mean, that's the experience of the R-Ferry crew as well, with the feedback with these drivers, but they know this track.
Halter to Hensler switch has been done, 63.6, that's a nice one. You really want to be within a second of the minimum, otherwise you're leaving time on the table. If you cut it any closer, you've got that 1 second joke to work with, but it's a big penalty. It'll cost you about 25 seconds just coming down pit lane, slowing down, and then running down the pit lane at 50 kilometers an hour.
Bit of traffic as David Askew brings the Asalco Mercedes out gives them every inch of road he possibly can. There's that exit line coming out of pit lane that's painted, and as I understand the drivers' meeting, they said treat that as a concrete wall. You go over it, we're going to give you a penalty.
Yeah, from both sides of it, on pit out, and if you're on the racetrack and want to make a maneuver, which is hard to get back over there unless you're being balked in traffic, but nonetheless, do not touch it.
Well, you just saw with these speeds as these cars run through turn one, giving everybody room should somebody be coming out of the pits is crucial. Boy, Vilander is just simply attack mode. Turning into Moss uses a little bit of that curb. I mean, he is doing everything he possibly can here.
In a stellar performance, what you'd expect from a championship winning team. Just totally executing on every level. The victory today may be in the hands of the crew and the wheel guns. Here they come. They're coming together.
This is the duel in the pit lane.
Maybe they just said, do what Parent does, or do the opposite. Sometimes they may say, stay out for an extra lap. Let's see if we can get the overlap. Tony preparing, loosening the belts. See him there going down to the side, probably to loosen that waist belt as well. Tony, a little bit bigger build than Miguel.
They have a little farther run from their pit stop to pit out than the Bentley does.
Much easier. His little delay there on the right front before he gets around to the left. See, it's a little bit easier, not as jammed in there like the Bentley with the right-hand driver. The driver getting out by the refueling rig should make it easier for the Ferrari.
Meanwhile, Bentley about to complete their stop now. Andy Suchek on board. Starts and goes, so that might be an indicator. Let's watch for it.
See if they play with that 1 second delta. Yes, they do. 61.9. They're using the Joker up. You're allowed a second margin there. Vilander to Miguel Molina, 63.4. That's a second and a half. That really takes the pressure off Andy Suchek here as he tries to get, you can see the gap. It was about half a second when they came to pit lane. Now it's going to be about a 2 second gap.
Tell you, these K-Pex lads are just spectacular, aren't they?
They are, but they have a lot more years experience in endurance racing, Greg, so it's hard for a team that's used to sprint racing to get up to that level quickly.
And every time we hear from Darren Law, whether it's in one of the broadcasts or when we talk to him in the paddock, he continually talks about how much they analyze and practice stops.
You see Baptista on the attack. Can he do anything with Molina? So he's doing the undercut. They pitted Soule immediately. He's going to try and chase down that Ferrari.
Well, this has proven to be exactly what we talked about, where the teams in pit lane playing a huge role in this one. Once timing cycles through here, as most of the field has indeed gone through and completed their stops, it's going to be interesting to see, but one thing we know for sure is Suchek leads it with now a 4 second margin due to that stop over Molina in the Ferrari and Baptista in the number 3 Bentley. And the still leading in Pro-Am, however, is the 91, now in the hands of Anthony Imperato in the Wright Motorsports Porsche. Today's coverage is brought to you in partnership with Purple Monkey Garage and with Ferrari. This is the battle right now for second. Molina in the 61 red R-Ferry Ferrari, and the green Bentley, the number 3 of Rodrigo Baptista, the Bentley with the blue highlights. Just a quick note here, with some of the very slow stops by some of the other teams. Dane Cameron now, Cal, has moved up the order, sits 8th overall, but now 5th in the pro category. So opportunity, they were able to do it. Their stop wasn't stellar, but it was far better than some of the others. That's big.
Yeah, it is, and he's got pace. He immediately lays down at 1:17.2, which is only a second off the leader's best. But talk about pace. Baptista, it was hammer time. The team said go, try and chase down to close that gap to the Alfa Motorsports car, and he did it with a 1:16.7 for the field. We've seen this before from this young man. He has immense pace and talent behind the wheel of that Bentley.
Yeah, he is extraordinary. I mean, the fastest qualifying lap was Perez at a 15.5, and he's almost within a second of that. And now Cameron, did he just slide through and pick the spot up on Barkey? I think he did. Yes. Oh, and this is going to be a big late move here from Wolf Hensler down inside Barkey, and he makes that work.
Barkey knows the racetrack very well as his local circuit, of course, but you're dealing with the pros here. They just take it to another level in terms of the commitment and the experience level.
And Barkey's savvy, knows he's in a Pro-Am battle. Neither of those cars are part of that. He didn't fight either of them hard, let them both through. The smart move now is try and reference a little bit off of the very experienced Wolf Hensler, and that might help him get up to speed just that much quicker.
So that traffic cost Dane Cameron 2 seconds. He laid down a 17.2. That was a 19.1 on that traffic lap. Molina starting to get into a rhythm. Does Baptista have anything left in the tank here to try and make a move here?
Right on board. That's the exit of one. Boy, that is so fast. Then this blind turn in. As it drops down through the double apex turn 2. And all of this at remarkable speeds. And setting up for turn 3. Leading in the Pro-Am category is Imperato in the 91. David Askew sits second in that class, back in 6th overall. Then Cameron, who is about 10 seconds adrift. This would be the next car in the overall queue at this point. But up front, it continues to be Suchek leading comfortably. Andy Suchek building that margin ever so slightly. It had been 4 seconds shortly after the stop, Cal. It was up to over 5, almost 5.
New fast lap for Andy Suchek in the number 9 Bentley as Molina and Baptista engage in this thrilling battle for second. The number 3 car pitting a little bit sooner. He had hot Pirelli P0s, and Molina had to get up on the wheel early. And again, there was a big delta in that pit stop time as well between the number 9 and the 61 of a second and a half. And that has created this gap here as we get back to racing after the pit stops.
And as Baptista is attacking Molina, the 61R Ferrari is doing everything he can to hang on to it right now, Ryan.
Yes, Remo Ferri is the team owner of that Ferrari. Remo, you've been in this game for a while. You know pit stops can win or lose you a race. What did you make of your team's effort during that pit stop window?
I think we did a good pit stop. I think, we're very competitive. The Bentleys are very competitive. It's great racing. I mean, they're fighting. That's what it's all about. We have a fantastic day, and the fans are having a great time because they see a battle on the track. But there's still a long way to go to the end. I think we're going to fight all the way through. We'll see what happens.
And there is a battle brewing. Miguel's got his hands full with that Bentley in his rearview mirrors. Can he keep the prancing horse wide enough to keep the Bentley behind?
Yeah, very much. It's not a great thing to be between two Bentleys, but we'll fight. Ferrari will fight till the end.
Thank you, Remo.
Thank you.
What a great character he is, and his passion for this sport is simply remarkable. And as they said, they will fight and fight to the end, and doing just that. But that margin up front, Suchek is just hooked up.
Well, he is hooked up. He's laid down the fastest lap of the race. And when you look at the points, they came into this race with an 8-point deficit on this car. Well, first to second is 7 points. So that could really snug up here by the end of the day.
Again, it is the number 91 Wright Motorsport Porsche now in the hands of Anthony Imperato that leads in the Pro-Am category. What I'm curious about is Pat Long is about 5.5 seconds adrift. Imperato, the AM driver in that Pro-Am pairing, along with Dennis Olsen, and Pat Long, a Porsche factory driver, but both running for the same team. Interesting to see what kind of times they're running. Fairly close on that last lap.
Yeah, best lap to best lap. Only a tenth apart, and they're almost identical within 0.02 of a second on the last one. Looks like Molina's kind of hit his stride now, and Baptista has dropped back a little bit.
Like Baptista got up on that curb on the outside there, that suddenly became a little bit of a rough ride, and you could see immediately Molina opened that gap up a bit more.
Seems like the Ferrari's pretty kind on its tires, so it's a double-edged sword. If you're kind on the tires, typically means they don't come up to temperature quickly, even though these slightly warmer conditions today here at CTMP will be helping that cause.
At the line right now. That margin up to almost 6 seconds. Suchek back to Molina. And there's a gentleman that's with Ryan in the pit lane who I'm sure is delighted with the performance he's seeing from his teammate.
Yeah, he built that gap to begin with. It is our pole sitter, Alvaro Perez. The beginning of that stint, it kind of looked like you were sliding around a little bit in that opening lap. How hard were you pushing to keep the Ferrari behind you?
We're all pushing all the time, but I was pushing hard. Managed to get some good temperature for the first laps. Managed to get a good jump on the start there, which is always tricky around here because you want to keep the lead as it's so hard to overtake, as we saw. Then I was, pushing all the stint. Tony was on me all the time. I think towards the end of the stint, he probably had a little bit on me. Maybe in the middle, I had something on him. So yeah, it was close racing on it all the time. And the guys did a great job on the stop. So let's see what happens now with Andy in the car.
Based on running behind the Ferrari in race 1, did you have a sense that if you could get out in front, you would have an advantage in pace here in race 2?
I wasn't behind the Ferrari in the race 1. That was our sister car, but I was behind the Porsche.
Yes.
And it is very difficult to stay very close on the high-speed corners. It's super difficult around here. So that's why quali is super important on this track.
Thank you, Alvaro.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, it plays a huge component in being successful at this racetrack. You got to qualify well.
Well, it just ramps up the intensity. Not that this racetrack needs any more, but everyone knows that with the nature of the circuit, if you execute the pit stop identically, it's all about that track position. That's why he had to be aggressive with the initial start. That's why he had to be pushing hard. We saw him through Moss Corner on those first 2 or 3 laps, getting wide. He didn't have the grip that he was looking for, and then suddenly the car came to him a little bit.
I'll tell you, I am mega impressed right now with the lap times we're seeing from Anthony Imperato in the number 91 Wright Motorsports Porsche. He continues to run laps that are only a 10th or 2 slower than Porsche factory driver Pat Long. Imperato impressing here. He's got a lot of laps, I believe, around this facility, but just a remarkable job. And as Long sits in the 5th spot, but now a little traffic here for Molina. Not good in terms of his pursuit, sitting right behind the 04 CrowdStrike Mercedes of George Kurtz, and finally is able to swing around. That will have cost him dearly. Yep, that margin now 6.5 seconds. And for George Kurtz, you simply can't just hit the disappear button. And it was in a spot of the track where passing is just tough. Baptista, though, was interesting to me as we're watching Baptista when Molina just a moment ago got hung up behind this car, the CrowdStrike Mercedes. He lost ground to Suchek, but Baptista wasn't able to make much on him.
Yeah, unfortunately for Rodrigo, he dropped back a little bit. I thought it was really going to hurt Molina and allow Baptista a bit of a run, but he wasn't in close enough range to take advantage of that traffic situation. And you're spot on with George Kurtz. So hard to get out of the way. I mean, it's such a high-commitment racetrack. You can't just drive off the road or be on the outside in the gray stuff. So he did a really nice job of managing that.
And one of the things that they ask you to do when the pros and drivers meetings are talking to the AMs is don't try and help. Drive your line because we'll work and figure out a way to get by you. And if we've committed and then you try and help and go right where we are, it can be ugly. And it's just random, too, isn't it? I mean, you can try and time it sometimes. Okay, I'm catching him. I might back off a little bit so that I catch him slightly at the exit of the turn or whatever. But there are times when you just catch him in a spot where you're stuck.
You really are. It's a rhythm, and sometimes you'll have days where you're just frustrated. You just catch people in the wrong parts of a racetrack, and other days it's just like the C's part, and away you go.
Well, for right now, speaking of away you go, Suchek has up to almost 7 seconds right now. The margin from Molina to Baptista officially last lap 1.4, but it's right there, and I think Baptista is trying to whittle that down once again. Here's just going through here's Imperato, who continues to put on a really impressive run. There's Pat Long in the Porsche Consulting Wright Motorsports Porsche. And looking at those times once again, the last lap here, that time Long actually found a little bit more and is up to that lap about 3.5 tenths quicker than Imperato, but for a while there, it was only a tenth or two, Cal. Imperato, this is impressive.
It really is. He's really found his feet. He's a very impressive young man. And he's really worked his craft well, along with Wright Motorsports, and making this big jump up to this GT3 machinery is not an easy step. He seems comfortable with it and seems to get stronger each and every outing.
Well, having Pat Long as a teammate in the other car obviously is a great opportunity, learning opportunity to be sure, but also obviously Dennis Olsen, the speed he was showing, that's a great reference point for Anthony, and obviously he was picking up at some of those keys, as well as there is a look at the number 5 of Till Bechtelsheimer, yesterday's winner in the Pro-Am category, but after that tough stop are back in 5th in Pro-Am in the Blancpain GT World Challenge America's 6th round. There is Andy Soucek as he continues to build that margin up to over 7 seconds here in round 6. Soucek almost looks like he's serenely out there on his way. Such is his margin, Cal.
It really is, and other than kind of a thwarted qualifying attempt in the first qualifying session for Andy Soucek, where he didn't have ABS, so he qualified back on the 3rd row of the grid. It's been a really strong weekend for K-Pax and this number 9 Bentley. But with the problems yesterday in terms of, when I say problems, they finished 2nd, but having to come through the pack a little bit, that allowed our Ferry Motorsport to grab the victory, extend that points lead, but they'll pretty much be equal over the weekend if they can score the victory, and Ferrari finishes 2nd today.
That gave you a good indication of the margin as Soucek flashes through on the bottom, and here is that battle. But Baptista, remember that margin had been up to, I think, 1.4 seconds not long ago. It's down to 8 tenths, Cal.
Yeah, he's right there, but he's hovering up, as we saw earlier in this stint. Once he gets to within about half a second, he just kind of plateaus there, and that could be the aero effect, getting the air off the front nose of that Bentley, and can't get him any closer. The key was that hammer time. He did it. He laid down his personal best lap of the race, which Andy Soucek is just pipped by a few hundredths of a second. So he did everything he could. And if the R Ferry stop had been about a second elapsed or a second slower, that could have given this number 3 car the opportunity to jump.
That's somewhat telling, isn't it? That everybody else best lap in the 17.2 or worse range. The Bentley's best laps both in the 16s.
Yeah,
they like this place.
They do. We knew they'd be strong, and it seems like the racetrack has come to them today as well. So these slightly warmer conditions, they've worked on the setup, and it seems ideal. Still a strong weekend for the Ferrari, but they don't seem to have the pace of the Bentleys today.
Well, the original Bentley Continental GT3 was good around here, and this car, this next-gen version, is so drastically revised in terms of center of gravity. You would think it just had to be better. I mean, the drivers have all said it just does everything a bit better.
You can see it by the steering inputs as we ride along with Rodrigo Baptista right now, compared to a Pat Long lap in the Porsche. It's very different.
Trying to see if he can get the run here. The Bentley does have very good straight line speed, and if he could just be a little closer to Molina coming out of Moss, might be able to do something, but that Ferrari just looks like it just flows good speed through Moss Corner.
Yeah, it's one of those cars that seems to be well suited. It doesn't really have an Achilles heel in terms of the schedule of any of the racetracks that we go to. And that's what makes it a championship contender and why they won last year, because they didn't really have any bad weekends.
Miguel, he's working. So I think that's always just impressive to me, and is you know how fast he's going, you know the loads that they're dealing with. It's so calm, you know. I mean, that's the airline pilot calm, isn't it?
That's right. Eyes wide open, looking all the way ahead. Little glance in his left side mirror there as he exited turn 2 to look to see where Baptista was. They've also got the onboard rear view cameras while they work with that screen that we're looking at to the right of our screen. Yeah, the little compression there. That's how close they are to the ground. Just touching there momentarily in the compression braking for turn 5. Now he's onto the Mario Andretti straightaway. Chance to just relax your hands a little bit. Ease up after a very intense Sector 1. That Sector 1 is amazing, the commitment that takes. all the way from the start-finish line down to Moss Corner.
And something drastic has happened with Anthony Imperato. I think that might be Anthony up in front of them. He was running so strongly, and suddenly his lap time, his last lap was a 1:30, and he is falling down the order in a big hurry. Ryan Marine, what are you hearing about that 91 Wright Motorsports car?
Well, they actually had to make an unscheduled pit stop. Evidently, there was a problem with the fuel rig. They didn't get it filled up enough, so they had to bring him back in and top him up with fuel and send him back out.
Boy, that is an absolute shame. He was having such a great run. Of course, it might explain things just a little bit. He was doing so with a nice lightweight car, apparently, on a nice fresh set of tires. But still, it was a great run, and to have that happen, that's just gutting. And that moves his teammate and the all-pro car, the number 58 of Long and Hargrove, up into 4th overall, and Dane Cameron and Trent Hinman up into 5th overall. That is just impressive. Obviously, starting at the very back of the field, Cal, and yeah, there are a number of seconds adrift at this stage of the lead, but still 5th overall with a driver who's never driven this particular car on this track. That's pretty remarkable.
Just great stuff by the whole group there to regroup and think about the best opportunity. They talked to a couple of other drivers in our paddock, and in fact one of them is actually in the transporter this morning with their helmet ready to go, and they felt Trent was the best fix in terms of finding someone who has recent experience with that NSX chassis.
I don't want to suggest anything here, but you keep wondering if Cameron isn't on the radio going, I saw a piece of debris over here on the track here. Boy, if they were to get this grouped up, could be a whole change in the format of this race. And right now, good run by the number 80 of Martin Barkey as that car now leads the Canadian drivers, leading in the Pro-Am category here. Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. Today's coverage is being brought to you in partnership with BP Racing Fuel, with Acura, and with Lamborghini. With everything that has developed, it is now the number 80 MBRP Performance Exhaust Racer's Edge Acura leading in the Pro-Am category. And once again, Cal, they didn't have the race they wanted necessarily yesterday, although they fought their way up into a second from an 8th place starting spot, so they had a great race. And they're sort of repeating that today as they have fought their way right back up from a 4th place spot into the class lead. And for the two Canadians that are the drivers in this car, that's sweet.
That'll be sweet. A lot of family and friends here this weekend cheering them on for their 3rd victory in class this season. Just doing everything right, making this big move up to the GT3 machinery for that team. It's been a big step, but they've certainly been up to the task. And they've got a great lineup. I mean, Martin Barkey's one of the best AM drivers out there, and in Kyle Marcelli, it doesn't come much better than that.
Yeah, very, very true. They are superb. And speaking of a superb drive, especially in very unusually difficult circumstances, Trent Hinman, what a drive he put on, Ryan.
Yeah, speaking of unusual, Trent, you were telling me you had an unusual wake-up call this morning. Tell us about it.
Yeah, it was quite literally a wake-up call, Ryan. Like, I got the call from Nathan. I was still asleep. So, I mean, that was definitely something totally unexpected, but that's something that all drivers dream about, too. I mean, I was just ready to have a nice, cool morning. You know, we have nothing going on until 4:30 today. So, but I get that call, and I head right over to the track, and you know what? It was something that was thrown together, I think, within like an hour. So from the time that I left my hotel to the time that I got in the race car here for the green flag, it was under an hour. So I just want to give a big thank you to Nathan, this whole real-time crew, Acura, obviously Brett, you know, I don't know what to say. I appreciate the nod. I'm sorry, you know, you're feeling a bit under the weather, but you know, I'm just happy I was able to come in and you know, hopefully fill the job equally as good as Brett would have. But either way, I really appreciate him giving me the nod here. I wish I could have done a little bit better, to be honest with you, Ryan. I wish I could have moved up a little bit more for Dane, but Dane's a monster in this thing, and he's running right up the order here. He's setting super quick times. So again, just really appreciate everybody from Real Time, Brett, giving me this opportunity, and hey, looking forward to see how we end up.
Yeah, running really well right now. Great job out there. Don't be too down on yourself. I think you impressed a lot of people today, Trent. Well done.
Thank you.
Well, that's a big part of it. Yeah, you'd like to do better, but you don't want to wad the car up or damage it in any way before you turn it over to the full season driver, and he was just reasonably aggressive and moved up appropriately. Thought it was a great drive by Trent Hinman. Andy Soucek continues to lead. However, Cal, that margin has come down just a little bit here. It was up to almost 8 seconds. It's down to 5.5.
Yeah, it's really been following Andy to see exactly what's been going on. But the last lap, for example, he was 0.8 slower than Miguel Molina, who's chasing him down in that Ferrari. So could have just been a batch of traffic that caught him out, and it's so easy to lose a couple of seconds here. And you don't want to take any risk. When you got that margin, you're certainly going to be a little bit more conservative. If someone's chasing you down within a second or two, you can't afford to waste any time. But Soucek has a nice, comfortable margin still of nearly 6 seconds to work with.
Andy's coming up on some traffic. I believe that's Martin Barkey. And he is tracking down here, and that we talked about it. Where do you catch him? And Martin, although he's got a little bit of breathing room, back to David Askew, it's not a ton, it's some 7 or so seconds, so he's not going to want to just lift and let him through and cost himself a potential couple of seconds. So this is up to Andy. Figure out a way through.
For John Meraki, the key is communication.
Right.
Let Martin know you can afford to let the Bentley by. That's the overall leader coming up behind you. Just give him the information. Don't be out there guessing and wondering what I should do. How much gap do I have on second place? Can I afford to give up any lap time?
And this is definitely stymied Andy a little bit here. Now he moves. Gets to the inside. Right there, Martin understands. Just a slight breeze let him through. And everybody for the better here, but the margin is about the same as it was the last time, just a little over 5.5 seconds.
Soucek and Molina basically running identical lap times, despite Soucek being balked a little bit there through the final corner. Takeda. This is a great performance by these two Japanese drivers here this weekend. They did a one-off with this team at Utah Motorsports Campus last year. We're eager to come back. They're going to be doing 4 races to dovetail in with their other racing commitments this year. And I think to come here at this racetrack, Greg, and run the lap times they've done is amazing.
It truly is. And I mean, you think about it, Shirazaka in his stint, his best lap count was a 17.7. That's wicked quick. And you compare it to a fast laps in this race, again, excluding the Bentleys, I mean, he's within a half second of the fastest.
That's right in the mix. And that bodes well for the rest of the year. They're only going to go from strength to strength. Obviously, every track will be new for them, but nonetheless, just the confidence in the machine, just knowing that and not having to adjust to a new car is half of the battle. Then learn the circuit. Could be knocking on the door for some great things.
You bet. And I think it speaks very highly for the Turner Motorsports team. I mean, they've got immense experience with BMWs, so many championships and wins, many of them back in the day in World Challenge. But for these drivers from the Asian Series to run one race last year and enjoy the experience so much, to say, we've got a little time in our schedule, we want to jam a few more of these in, speaks very highly of Will Turner and his
What's
game.
going to be great is to see Martin Fuentes back with Cesar Baccarello lead the M Championship. That was a little bobble. We say great things. A little mistake there at high speed down through turn 4. It'll be great to see those guys have someone really knocking on the door with some pace when they return to the championship.
Absolutely, and that might happen as soon as Sonoma, I would think. And that, although I'm not sure they're going to be at Sonoma, have to confirm what those 4 events are, but yeah, you're right, that's going to be fun to watch. And right now, Naoto Takeda, a little bobble in turn 4 in the approach to 5, but a nice save, gathered it right back up again. Here is the number 5, now in the hands of Till Bechtelsheimer. Here is a look at Cameron, again sitting 5th overall right now. And he has taken a fair chunk out of Pat Long, hasn't he? That margin is down to only 6 seconds right now.
Yeah, it was up over 10, 12 seconds at one point. So seemed like Pat struggling for pace here a little bit. Could be the setup. They had some issues yesterday, so they had to make some adjustments. But Dane Cameron been very much up on the wheel. Just been running consistent low 17 since he jumped aboard. He's run a lap of 17.18 compared to his best of a 17.16. So nice challenge up ahead of him in Pat Long, but catching Pat is one thing and passing him. But he's got time. If he can maintain the advantage that he has in pace, he should catch him before the end of this race, before we see the checkered flag.
You bring up a good point with that 58 car. It had that issue at that left rear yesterday, and if they then had to go a little less aggressive on the setup to preserve things a little bit, that'll do that, but it's not necessarily as fast a setup either, is it?
That's right, because you're into these long duration right-hand sweepers for so long. If you have to be a bit more conservative with your setup, that costs you lap time.
And Cameron working to take advantage of any opportunity he can at this stage. As we hop back on board. Dane.
8/10 out of the margin that lap over Pat Long. Got Bechtelsheimer up ahead of me, has to clear first before he can see Pat once again.
Run down through 4, nice and tidy. You don't have a huge amount of space in that run from 4 down to 5 once you technically exit 4 to get it woed and turned into 5. It all comes at you in a big, big hurry here. It was a great example of Dane Cameron absolutely on the edge as he attempts to run down Pat Long here at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park in what will become a battle for the 4th spot here. Soucek in the Bentley leads Molina in the Ferrari and Baptista in the Bentley. Watching Dane Cameron as he continues to charge up through the field, having cleared all of the Pro-Am machines at this point. He dropped the hammer and trying to get after Pat Long. Here's a look now at Andy Soucek coming up on the back of that Turner BMW. Once again, just where you catch a car, and he catches it right into the 8, 9, 10 complex.
Yeah, he's got a 6+ second lead, so he'll just take his time here, just try and time his run off White's corner, the final corner here at CTMP. Get down to the inside of that BMW. So it's a nice margin to have. It just takes away the intensity and the pressure of making these moves in traffic, Greg.
Yeah, and he only lost about 0.6 of a second right there in that exchange. And as you said, having that buffer is okay. And he had dropped down to about, what, 5.5 seconds in front of Molina last time he got caught in traffic, and quickly ballooned that right back up to over 6 seconds. He's really, truly, at this stage, seems to have the measure of the field.
It's been dominant. I mean, Alvaro started the car from the pole. Certainly he had pressure from Tony all the way through his stint, right till they rolled into pit lane, almost nose to tail. But they executed the pit stop. They took the Joker 1 second advantage that they could use. They were basically trying to gain any advantage they can, and then Andy got behind the wheel. And just as Darren Law told me, after Andy Soucek qualified quite poorly for the first round of the championship here this weekend, first round this weekend, is that without the ABS issues, he felt that Andy could have laid down a similar lap to Alvaro.
And how confident are you as a crew to be willing to work in the realm, that gray realm of the 1 second Joker? That, I mean, that's confidence by a team to know we're good enough to do this.
Yeah, you've got to get your sums right, but you got to be executing, ticking all the boxes. You just got to believe.
You see Molina flashing the lights, doing everything he can to let the BMW of Takeda know he's coming. And Wolf Hensler pretty much doing the same thing to some traffic right in front of him, trying to give those drivers they're overtaking every bit of advance notice that I'm coming, and when I get there, I am coming through in a hurry. Right now, Barkey continues to lead in Pro-Am. Martin Barkey continues to lead here in the Pro-Am category. He and Kyle Marcelli, locally based Canadians in the Racer's Edge MBRP Performance Exhaust Acura, are having a great day at this stage. Their lead back to the second place car, which is the car behind them in the overall queue, the number 63 Usulco DXDT Mercedes of David Askew, some 10 seconds. And they're running lap times, Barkey just slightly quicker than David, so he's doing what he needs to do to continue to open that up. And then a recovering Anthony Imperato with a little bit more fuel on board now in the 91 sits third.
I'll tell you what's impressive is the pace of these Pirelli P0s late in to go, and Molina and Hensler just laid down their fastest lap of the race, and we're getting pretty close to the checkered flag, so that's just great performance over the long stint.
That truly is. And Molina 17-1. There's the number 22 of Morad as he slices through and picks up the spot. Oh, and then floats it just a little bit wide, Cal.
Woo!
Big save.
Well, he knows this racetrack like the back of his hand. He needed to know every inch of it right there.
He hung on to it. Coming up on the back of him right now, this is Baptista, third overall. And gives you an idea of the pace of this group up front. That they are coming up and lapping cars that are in the 8th, 7th place overall. That's impressive pace.
Little battle here between David Askew and Imperato for second place in Pro-Am. Imperato's been very much on the charge here and has chased down the Mercedes AMG.
We ride on board with the Salco Mercedes. Askew is an AM winner at his home track in Utah last year, and they've really grown the program. He's the team principal at DXDT, now fielding 2 cars, including the 04 CrowdStrike Mercedes. And he said, I'm happy to drive, he said, but I've got to wear that team owner hat, take care of customers and sponsors, and he seems to be doing it, doing both fairly well.
He does. It's a great group, a lot of experience in that crew, led by Richard Rader. 2-car operation this year, obviously running the CrowdStrike AMG Mercedes as well. And that's nice to have a 2-car operation with the experience factor of a Colin Brown and a Ryan Dial in the camp. You're only going to be moving forward.
Speaking of moving forward, this has kind of flown by, hasn't it? We're into our final 7 minutes of this 6th round of the championship.
I'm sure that Ryan Dial is on the radio trying to motivate David Askew to keep the pace up and maintain that second position.
There's Andy Suchek taking the reins over from starting driver Alvaro Parent, and has been just superb here. That margin now down a little bit, under 5 seconds for the first time in a while, but you've got to believe this is just a little bit of management by Suchek here, knowing the clock time left and knowing what he's got in those tires.
The nice thing with this racetrack, even if you thought you could relax with a big margin, it will keep you up on the wheel and keep you totally focused. So we're looking at this little battle here. Dane Cameron continuing to reduce that margin to Pat Long, which is for 4th position overall, obviously, with Cameron's teammate now a pro. This is for a pro position. Cameron's gap to the Porsche is just 3.5 seconds.
Did you see that little bit of rotation Cameron had to 5B and Moss? Got that back end around, straightened it out, got on the throttle. He's doing everything he possibly can. And coming up on under 6 minutes to go, he's been taking away chunks at half a second or so. It's just a matter of, does he have time?
Lap times have been super consistent. He's been running low 17s for the majority of the stint. Pat Long did respond with an equal lap of a high 17 about 2 or 3 laps ago, but certainly it seems like Dane has the pace in the race car. He's got to deal with the traffic in front and then try and get on the tail of that Porsche and then see what the aero effect will be. A pretty stubborn Pat Long to get by.
Absolutely, as they work down through 2. They're just keeping an eye here behind Pat in his right motorsports car. There is George Kurtz in the CrowdStrike Mercedes, and then there is Cameron, and it's all down to how quickly can Cameron get through. Lights flashing, trying to give Kurtz a little warning. Is he going to try him down here into the braking zone of 5?
He can't afford to mess around. He doesn't want to take too many chances. He knows George Kurtz well. One weekend when Colin Brown was not available to do coaching for George, he actually drafted in Dane, so they know each other well, and George just moves aside. Curious to see if that did cost Dane any time.
Yeah.
2.3 seconds was the gap to Long last time across the stripe. Time is not on his side as you look at the clock.
4.5 minutes to go. Cameron into turn 8.
Love the rhythm of this section here.
Yes.
As you said, there's just enough time to get the car, carry speed through turn 9, and then get it back over to the left to set up for that vital exit speed onto this front straightaway.
2.3.
Stayed the same.
Yep.
Now it's go time. This is going to be fun. Let's battle on the racetrack right now.
Yep. Dane unleashed a little bit, and Pat knowing he's got to up the speed just a little perhaps here. Molina has trimmed that margin of Suchek now down as Molina just turned his best and first time into the 16s at a 1:16.8 the previous lap through, and that margin had dropped to under 3 seconds.
It's a great lap. We talked about the Ferrari being easy on its tires. Imagine that. 40-odd minutes into this stint, he lays down the fastest lap of his race.
Yeah, that was quick.
That will change things a little bit. That'll get Andy's attention. He gets traffic next time. He might not be in such a conservative mode. He may have to attack a little bit more.
Yeah, that was the fastest lap of this car at this race. He is up on it for sure. Here's your margin.
Iconic livery. It's great seeing that red Ferrari with those gold wheels.
Yeah, we say it every broadcast at some point. It's just so evocative. And what makes it even more fun in a way is that K-Pax, which had their traditional colors, but this year they've adopted the traditional Bentley racing green colors. So you've got some history playing out just in the liveries of the cars. Here we go, coming up on 2.5, just inside 2.5 to go. That'll be 2 laps left. But what's that margin? About 3, so.
Trimmed another 3/10.
Yeah, he did.
The white flag next time by. Souček just hoping that he doesn't get any traffic. Should be pretty good. Hensler's up ahead of him on the road, but he's got good pace right now, so Souček should have a pretty easy run to see the checkered flag in a lap and a half.
Keeping an eye as well on that long Cameron battle. What's the margin? It was down to 1.7 last time through.
The Skew is doing a great job by keeping the gap to Imperato right at a half second with that second position in the Pro-Am class, so he's delivering today.
Yes, he is. All right, here we're going to find out what that margin is as Long and Cameron come by start and finish. 1.6.
That's digging deep.
He is.
Only 2/10 between them that lap, so the delta is not as large as it was in terms of their personal lap times.
You start to get that. It's when you're in the within 2 seconds back, you start to feel a little bit of that aero wash.
Should be about a second, I would say, around this track. You'll start to get the effect and lose some lap time.
All right, white flag is out. We are on our final lap here in round 6 at the Blancpain GT World Challenge America, Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, and the margin that time 3.4 seconds. So Souček responding, opening that margin up just a bit, give himself a little bit more of a comfort zone, as you said. Molina coming and getting that close. Here is your leader in the Pro-Am category, Canadian Martin Barkey, in the Racer's Edge MBRP Performance Exhaust entry. He's got lots of room, maintaining that 10 or so second gap back to David Askew, who's second in the class, and then Imperato. Imperato has brought that down to under 5, but just here as we are on this last lap. Here he goes, Souček. Down the Andretti straightaway, or I should say up the Andretti straightaway for the last time, Cal.
This will really tighten up the points chase here tonight. They'll have an equal score over the weekend.
Yeah, the Ferrari up by 8. There's a 7-point difference here, so about as close as it gets. Here we go. Bentley coming through, winning the 6th round of the championship at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. Alvaro on the wall, delighted with the performance. Molina, Vilander, and Canadian-based R Ferry Motorsports coming home second. A win in a second, that's not too bad. And winding his way through the final couple of corners. What a day for the Canadian duo. Martin Barkey behind the wheel, Kyle Marcelli, and Racer's Edge in the MBRP Performance Exhaust Acura NSX. 3rd win in the Pro-Am category of the season. What a year they are having. Just fantastic. Of course, the BMW of Takeda and Shirazaka will win the AM category. And at the end, the margin between Long and Cameron, 1 second. He gave it his all. All right, so Souček enjoying his cool-down lap. Molina and Baptista filling out the top 3. Barkey and Marcelli winning in the Pro-Am category over Askew in the Mercedes and Imperato in the Porsche. And the Bentleys enjoying this lap together. Got to be loving this moment, Cal. The Bentley boys here having a bit of fun on this cool-down lap. 1st and 3rd. both of them up on the podium.
2 podiums yesterday, but the top spot is what they wanted.
Yes.
Great result for Andy Soucek and Alvaro Perrin. This championship is going to remain intense. It'll be a 1-point margin at the end of today, equaling the scores for the weekend with a win and a second place of the SRO Motorsports camp as well.
You know, I was with the year that Andy's had, didn't want to say anything until the checker flew, but he, after those problems at Bathurst and the like, he has shown why they have him as a Bentley boy once again.
Oh, he's top drawer, top shelf.
Man.
He really is. He's the real deal. And, you know, drivers will have their little bobbles, but it's all about the confidence factor, believing in yourself. And the team believes in Andy, and he's got a lot of confidence going right now. They're a very strong partnership. Remember, for Soucek and Soule, they'd never seen this racetrack before.
Yep,
we didn't have Sprint X competition here last year, so to run the lap times of an Alvaro Perrin who knows the racetrack very well is a testimony to his skill level.
That is a really good point. And again, just I think very impressed with what we've seen from the 43 real-time team. Again, with Trent Hinman doing exactly the job he was drafted in for, and then Dane Cameron doing what Dane Cameron does, and taking it down to 8/10 at the end. That was awesome.
He was right there, right on Pat's tail for the last few corners, but couldn't quite make it happen. He'd had fun, though. It was nice to have that new target starting at the back. You never know how your day's going to go, and certainly they would have an agenda, and 5th place overall is a great result for that camp.
It is indeed, and then Barkey and Marcelli and Racer's Edge winning again in the Pro-Am as the cars make their way down into the Victory Circle staging area here at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. All the crews getting a chance to breathe for just a second here and celebrate for some. And boy, talk about the celebration there. It's Andy Soucek climbing out from behind the wheel of that number 9 Bentley. Big celebrations there. You've got to love it.
That's awesome.
Celebrations have truly erupted in Victory Circle here at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, round 6 of the Blancpain GT World Challenge America. Big congratulations, and incredibly well-deserved, going to Andy Soucek.
Yeah, that's a big win. That's a big weekend. They performed really well. Came through that technical difficulty in qualifying for round 1 where they lost the ABS system and rebounded perfectly.
That they did. And again, Perrin doing such a brilliant job qualifying for this race, doing what he needed at the start. Soucek responding brilliantly. Here's a look at the provisional results here, and that great story that we've been talking about, certainly. Just a great job here for Soucek and Perrin. And again, you've got both of the Audi or the Bentleys certainly up on the podium, split by local SRO Motorsports Ferrari, and then Long and Cameron completing the top 5 with an absolutely superb run here. So got to be very pleased with that. And again, I like what you were talking about too for the BMW. Yeah, they're alone here in the AM class, but when the Scuderia Garage Italia car comes back, as we take a look here at the results once again, that's going to be a fun story to follow as well. And again, Barkey, what a battle that they had here with Askew, Imperato. And for Imperato, if not for that problem with the refueling, who knows where he would have ended up in the overall.
But David Askew really responded to that challenge. I mean, he laid down lap times identical to Anthony and maintained that runner-up position. A great day for him.
As you see the manufacturers and team names roll into the results column, it has been a remarkable day for K-Pex Racing. And now down amongst the celebrations is Ryan.
It was quite a celebration. Our race 2 winners, Alvaro Perrin and Andy Soucek. A big hug from you, Alvaro, when Andy got out of the car. You guys have made a really strong pairing going back to last year. What has made this duo work so well?
Look, the speed and all the work and the work with the teams, the car preparation has always been there. Obviously, this car, the second generation this year, compared to the competition, is a lot stronger. We've been doing all the right things with the team. We've been testing on the tracks that we've raced apart from here. So Virginia, Cota, we've tested there. So we're doing all the right steps to try and get the best result possible. Andy's been driving phenomenally this year. You know, I mean, 2 poles, and this time not the third because we had a small technical issue, so we couldn't do any laps in quali. But and it's been going all right. Also, I've got myself 2 poles, and then today we had the perfect race. We spoke about it. We worked hard to get it, and here it is. You know, the end result. So.
And Andy, your stint, the Ferrari was getting a little bit closer in the final laps. Were you paying any attention to that at all?
No, I wasn't looking in the mirror. They were just updating me on the pace. I knew he was there, but he wasn't really a threat, to be fair. I mean, it's difficult to overtake here, and he was like 4 seconds away. I just need to thank the team for a great job. We went testing, as Alvaro said, and that made us find a good setup. And I just want to say that this is a special day for me because this helmet was inspired in Maria de Villota, who passed away in 2013. Great driver, great friend. This is her star, and this win is for her.
Fantastic story. Fantastic weekend. Congratulations to both of you.
Thank you.
Very touching when you have a great performance, and it also has some deeper meaning as well. Makes it very, very special, as was his drive.
It was mega. It was really a perfect day, as Alvaro related to, and this is going to be an intense championship. Our Ferry are the champions. You got to take that title away from them, but those guys are very, very strong.
All right, so it's the crowd enjoying the race that's just unfolded. Well, what a day it's been here at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park.